All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. We have been doing a countdown of the top 50 games of the 2025 season. We've got a little team here at College Football Addiction. We all ranked our top 50, and then we used a poll system or voting system. If you picked a game number 1, it got 50 points. If you picked a game number 50, it got 1 point. And that's how we came up with our top 50. This order that we did the shorts in was not necessarily how I would have ranked each matchup, but it was close, right? Eventually, you're all going to come up with some of the same top 10, some of the same bottom 50, and that's how we came up with our list. I'm going to go through and predict every single one of those 50 games because tomorrow, college football is back. We've released all 50. We got a lot of hate, a lot of love for where we placed games. Again, when you got 4 people voting, it's not just one list, so blame the other 3 guys if you don't like where anything is placed. I thought about making a really cool graphic for this, but then having to put 100 different logos together just seemed ridiculous, so we're going with a Google Sheet, and hopefully you don't hate that. If you do, then we'll try better next year and try to do a little bit more work with it so that you guys don't hate me. Let's get into it. We won't go 50-1. So we'll start with game 1, Michigan versus Ohio State. No game was talked about more last year. I think it's going to be an opposite narrative this year. I think Ohio State gets this win against Michigan to finish up the year and also qualify for the Big Ten championship. Not breaking any kind of news there, thinking that Ohio State makes it back to Indy this year after missing last year, but I do think that they find a way to beat Michigan. Although, just for the outrage, I enjoy this a little more when Michigan wins. That's not against Ohio State or anything, but I think the content is better when you see it go the other way. But I do think Ohio State gets it this year. This is a tough one. New quarterback Arch Manning and Ohio State putting Sayin out. Arch Manning for Texas, obviously. But it's something about playing in the shoe. I'm going to take Ohio State here. I know that the trendy pick is to go the other way. I know that if you listen to people like Feinbaum, they could never see Texas losing in this situation. If this was in Austin, I'd probably go the other way, but I'm going to pick Ohio State, honestly, I guess, to go 2-0 in the top 2 games of the year. I think Texas also finally gets off the Kirby owns us. Even though this game is in Athens, I like Texas to win this one. And then I guess I'm just flip-flopping around because I like Georgia to win at home against Alabama. Kind of the same thing. I think they finally break the streak of Alabama just seeming to beat them every year. I think Georgia gets the win at home there. I'm going to go with Notre Dame in this one. I'm not going to try and be anti-SEC in every single pick, but playing up in South Bend is a big deal. Until I see Texas A&M really put it together, this is a tough place to go up and play. I like Marcel Reed a lot. I think Texas A&M has a great shot in this game. I loved Notre Dame last year and bet on them heavy. I don't know why Texas A&M had so much hype in a game 1 for Elko. This one, not game 1 of the year, but happens a little bit later in September. I like Notre Dame, though, to go 2-0 back-to-back years beating A&M. Oregon, Penn State. I'll buy the Penn State hype. I think the whiteout that you know that it is, Penn State needing to win a big game. I'll take Penn State as well in this one. LSU in the next 2 games, and I'm not picking them for either one of them. I think Clemson is one of the most undervalued teams in the country with what they bring back. I think they have quarterback 1 playing for them. And I love them -3 in week 1, just 8 days from today. And then I just think it's tough to go up into Tuscaloosa and win games. I mean, LSU got absolutely manhandled by Alabama last year. I don't think they lose like that. I think we have a much more competitive game. But I do think Alabama finds a way to get the win here. So unfortunately for LSU, I don't know that they can afford a 3rd loss. I think they've got 2 losses against really good teams that I think have a great shot to make the college football playoff, probably will make the college football playoff, but I'm not picking LSU until I see them. Well, I guess I can't pick them until I see them play since they play week 1, but those are my thoughts on both those LSU matchups. Listen, it pains me to do this. I wore my FSU stuff today because we're just 8 days from FSU's kickoff, but I think Miami gets the win against Notre Dame. I know I picked Notre Dame to win against A&M. I don't even know what I would do in a Miami versus A&M matchup, but I think Miami does get the win week 1 against Notre Dame on the Sunday night. I just think that what they return, what Notre Dame is kind of losing, just from a quarterback perspective, obviously, if you just get average quarterback play, that should be fine for them. But I like Miami to get the win at home here. Game number 9 it goes to the Canes, even though I would much prefer that to go the other way. Oklahoma and Texas. Yeah, give me Texas in this one. I think Oklahoma bounces back in a major way, has a really good year. but I just don't know if it'll be enough to middle of the season beat a Texas team that I expect to be kind of up and running by that point. I think that matchup's going to be phenomenal. I think it'll be a one-score game. I just trust Texas a little bit more to get it done. I love South Carolina, and I'm really high on Lenora Sellers. I just think Clemson's a little bit more of a complete team. Now, I will say this. Predicting games takes an insane amount of luck because college football is stupid and weird. Predicting games that happen after Thanksgiving when you're still in August is impossible. So I'm riding with the vibes here. I just don't think South Carolina wins 2 in a row. They absolutely could. I think Clemson will be a little bit more well-rounded this year. They didn't lose as much as South Carolina did. I like Clemson's offense a ton. Lenora Sellers has to be Superman, I think, for them to win this game, and I think he's great. Just don't know that he does it. Texas and Texas A&M, yeah, this is an easy buy for Texas for me. I think, again, you're predicting a game that's happening the last game of the year. Very tough to do, but I just have a little more confidence in Texas at this point in August than I do Texas A&M. Ohio State, Penn State, I think this is the year it finally happens. Even though it's in the shoe, I like Penn State to win this game. I like a rematch to happen in Indy, which I would probably pick Ohio State for because it's hard to beat a team twice. But I like Penn State to finally get the win here against Ohio State. It's just a little more confidence in the running game and in Drew Allar than saying and Ohio State. Certainly, maybe a little bit of bold prediction there, picking Penn State in this one on the road, but I do think this is the year they get it done. Again, one that pains me to do it, but I don't really see the scenario where Florida State wins week 1. Could they? Absolutely. It'll be the new game, the first game in a newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium. I think that Florida State is going to have a much better year. Impossible not to, I suppose. But I do think that Florida State just will need a lot of things to go their way in this opening matchup against Alabama. So I'll take the Crimson Tide in this one. Florida, Georgia. I wish this game would be on a home campus just once in my life, but apparently we can't have nice things. And I know the Florida Georgia fans love the rivalry there in Jacksonville. So it would be cool to see on a home campus. However, it's not. I'll take Georgia in this one until I see Napier beat Kirby Smart. I know they were close last year. I know that a lot of people think that had to do with Lagway. Lagway had 2 completions when he went out of the game. So I think it was more about Beck turning the ball over. If Georgia protects the ball, takes care of the ball in this matchup, I think they do beat Florida, though I do expect Florida to be much improved as well. This game lost a little bit of its juice when Nico left. We made this list well before, around the time that a lot of that stuff was happening. And so Alabama, Tennessee maybe lost a little bit of juice, but still a massive matchup. I like the Crimson Tide here, playing at home. I don't expect Tennessee to be a great team. Now, I think they could certainly be like 8-4, but I like Alabama to win this one. Alabama, Auburn. On the road here, it's a sneaky spot that I almost want to pick Auburn, but I don't know how bought in they'll be at the end of the year. Now, I know they always get up for the rivalry game, and you're always going to be excited about that, but I don't have a lot of confidence that Auburn can truly be in this game with the difference in talent on both rosters. Even though weird things happen on the plains, I don't see it. Florida and Miami. I'm going to pick Miami here. I know that I picked Miami to not only beat Notre Dame to open the year, but I think they win this one too, down in South Florida. We'll know a lot more about both these teams before this game happens. Florida will have played at LSU. Miami will have played Notre Dame, so I could certainly flip-flop this pick once we get to game week. But these teams weren't even close last year, and I know Florida got much better throughout the year. I know Miami stumbled at the end of last year, but I think that's what Miami does kind of every year, and that's not even a shot at Canes fans. I mean, Miami typically starts really well and then kind of falls off a cliff late. The fact this game is happening early, the fact that it's not happening in the swamp, and the fact that Miami is was so much better than Florida last year, I would need to see more from Florida. They go on the road and upset LSU or even play LSU close. Miami loses Notre Dame. Maybe I'll flip this pick around. But as of today, I like Miami to win that game. Oregon, Washington. This is the biggest trap game of all time. I do think Oregon wins, but you know what? Let's go the other way. Now, let's say Washington does something special. I think Oregon should win this game. But I think Washington has a great chance to go out and pull an upset here, an old Pac-12 rivalry. It might be the last game of the year, might be the last weekend of the year. If I'm wrong on that, somebody will correct me in the comments. So I'm not too worried about it. But I do think that Washington pulled. I'm just calling my shot. I don't think that this happens, but you can't just pick chalk every single week. So give me Washington in the upset on this one. Florida, LSU. I think that LSU loses week 1 and they play with incredible desperation, and that's why they end up beating Florida at home. Again, Napier's just not been good at Owensville. They've won a lot of big games in Gainesville. They beat Tennessee a couple of years ago when they had Hooker. They beat Ole Miss and LSU last year at home. they've won a lot more big games at home than they've won on the road. And so I think that the home and away, LSU being a tough place to play, LSU coming off of what I think is going to be a loss in week 1, I like them over the Gators. Michigan versus Oklahoma. I do like Oklahoma in this one. I know I took Texas in the last one, and see, I'm not going anti-SEC every single matchup. I do think that this is one that Michigan could absolutely win, but I like Oklahoma to find a way, especially at home. I like them to get this done. Auburn versus Georgia, kind of the same thoughts here as I did with Alabama. I'd love to see Auburn kind of turn around and be more relevant, but until I see it, I need them to prove it to me. And then Boise State, Notre Dame. I'll take Notre Dame in this one. You know, I think Boise State was a great story last year. I think this game will be a lot of fun. Hopefully Boise State's undefeated going into it. It should be. Notre Dame may be as well, but I like Notre Dame. Just too much talent. The game being in South Bend, big deal there. I don't see a way that Boise State pulls off this upset, but hey, I'd love to be wrong and see it. I'm all for more upsets during college football. I like Michigan to beat USC. I'm not a believer until I see Lincoln Riley put it together. I know there's a lot of hype. I know there's a lot of excitement, but that is absolutely classic of a that is classic of a USC team every single year. I like Michigan to find a way to get the win against USC. I think Michigan does have a bounce back year and plays a little bit better. Army-Navy made our top 25 just barely. Obviously, there may be less excitement around this game until we actually get to it. I don't know how many people are thinking about Army-Navy all throughout the year as this massive matchup. Navy could be playing for a playoff spot. I like Navy to get the win in this one. My little cousin's in the Navy active right now, so shout out to all of our armed forces and those in the military. But I do like Navy to get the win here. I think they win. And I don't know if it gets them a playoff spot or not, but I do expect them to be a little bit better this year and take back the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. I like LSU over Ole Miss. I'm not selling so hard on Austin Simmons. I just think they're a little more complete. I don't trust, I mean, this is the portal matchup of the SEC for sure, but I don't trust how much Ole Miss is built through the portal. I know LSU has done a ton too and has the #1 portal class. However, LSU has a lot of talent around those portal entries that it's just not the same to me as what Ole Miss has done. I trust Nussmeier a little bit more than Simmons here, even though I believe this is on the road for LSU. I think they're up in Oxford, but give me LSU to win this one. Clemson, Louisville. This was a fun one last year for Louisville fans. Clemson never even had a chance. I do think they get revenge this year. I think Clemson is going to be really good, so give me them beating Louisville. If Clemson was going to stumble in the ACC, it would probably be this game. Alabama, South Carolina. Here's where I'll go with an upset. I think South Carolina gets this done. I think it's just a tough place to play in Willie Bryce. I think that Sellers absolutely, no pun intended, sells out and goes all in on this one. South Carolina, I think they could go 8-4. I think they could regress by a game from last year, but I do think Alabama is one of those games they get. So let's pick another upset. Man, this one's tough, and I would hate to pick Florida here, and I'm not going to do it, but I will tell you, I think Texas should have this game circled. Obviously, they have the Red River shootout circled. Obviously, they have the Georgia game circled, and obviously they have the Ohio State game circled to start the year. But I think that Florida is a team that could absolutely trip them up. They're a team that could absolutely get the better of them. I'm not saying they will, but you know Florida is upset about the way that game went down last year, having their entire secondary and their starting quarterback out and going into a game where they literally just didn't have a chance. I think that Texas wins this, but don't undersell the Gators playing in the swamp in this situation, especially if Florida has lost to Miami and LSU, like I predicted earlier in our top 25. If that has happened, Florida will play with all desperation at home. They play hard under Billy Napier. They never quit. Texas will be coming off the Red River, I believe. That's a tough spot for Texas to be in. So, or has the Red River the next week. Either way, they're back to back. I don't have the schedule pulled up right in front of me, but I know it's close. So Florida, Texas, a really big one. I'm going to pick Texas. That is one that would not surprise me to go the other way. Florida State, Miami. Again, I hate to pick against FSU every time they're on this, which I'm going to probably do again here in just about 2 picks. I just think Miami's got a little bit. Oh, I did that wrong. Yeah, my idiocy almost screwed me up there. But yeah, I like Miami to get the win here. I just, until I see it from Florida State, I'm not quite ready to pick them against any of the big 4 teams they play. Florida State comes out and beats Bama and then beats Virginia on the road, and Miami loses to Florida and Notre Dame. Yeah, I'll certainly change my pick around based on how their seasons are going. But to start this, I think I lean Miami here just slightly. Now, I do think this game is more competitive than last year. I think Tommy Castellanos could be a big reason why. I think that Florida State could win this. Of the big 4 games they have, Alabama, Clemson, Miami, and Florida, I think that Florida State's best chances at an upset is this game at home against the Canes, but I still like Miami to win it at this point. Colorado, Georgia Tech. We've got a couple of asterisks there. They mean absolutely nothing. I just put a game in here twice, so I had to replace a game. I think Georgia Tech gets this win, but don't undersell Deion Sanders, Caden Salter, and the excitement that's going on out there in Boulder. I think that absolutely is a game that Coach Prime and the boys could win. I just like Georgia Tech a little bit better. I think they're better on the trenches, especially the offensive line, and so that's a big deal to me. Kind of the same idea as the Miami game here. Could Florida State win this game? Absolutely. Could Florida have 5 losses coming into this game? Absolutely. When you look at how brutal their schedule is. And I just did it again. See, that's my FSU bias just coming out. Won't even let me pick against the Noles when I want to. But I certainly don't want to do this. But again, projecting a game that's going to happen 3 months from now after Thanksgiving is almost impossible. Weird things happen. I think back to the 2018 year, that going into that year, I would have never picked Florida to win that game. Going into the 2022 season, I don't know that I would have picked Florida State to win that game. So this rivalry does ebb and flow. There could certainly be a quit factor in Florida if Napier's been fired or something like that, because they're losing more games than they should. With how tough their schedule is. But at this point, it's hard for me to imagine Florida State going in there and getting the win against DJ Lagway and the Gators. I'd love to be wrong on that one, and obviously game 30 as well. Shoot, whatever game 14 was against Bama. Love for Florida State to get those wins. I just don't see it at this point. I like Penn State against Indiana. I don't know how much, you really need me to go into this, but I think Penn State could be the class of the Big Ten this year, them or Ohio State, and I don't think Indiana has quite the year they had last year. This is a tricky spot for Clemson. I am going to pick them in this one, but Georgia Tech is no slouch at all, and I do think this game being in Atlanta is a big deal. I think Brent Key is a great coach, might be one of my favorite coaches in the ACC, but I like Clemson a little bit more than Georgia Tech at this point. Oklahoma, South Carolina, this one will be fun. I'm going to pick Oklahoma in this one. I took South Carolina against Bama. I think South Carolina's schedule at times is murderer's row, much like Oklahoma's themselves and like Florida's. I think Oklahoma gets a little revenge for how things went down last year. I really like their offense that they're going to have, and I think Oklahoma puts it together. Now, putting it together with Oklahoma's schedule might be 8-4, but I think they find a way and get the win against South Carolina. Ole Miss versus Tulane. This will be a fun one, but I like Ole Miss's talent just a little bit more than Tulane's. Having to go on the road's a big deal too. If this was in New Orleans, I might go a little harder with an upset, but I do like Ole Miss at this point. I'm going to pick UF here, and I know this is at Texas A&M. I know this is at Kyle Field in College Station, but I like UF to get the win on the road at Texas A&M, mostly because I think UF drops the 3 games before this. I think they dropped to Miami. I think they dropped to LSU. I think they dropped to Texas. They play with their hair on absolute fire. I know this is on the road. I know UF has not had a lot of success on the road. They always find a way to blow it on the road. But I do think that this is one where they can catch Texas A&M. Again, I'm a little more confident in Lagway going home from that area than I am in Texas A&M putting it all together. Wouldn't surprise me either way. This is a great matchup. It's kind of an underrated matchup. I know UF fans are tired of playing A&M. I don't really know if A&M fans feel the same way about UF. UF fans are tired of playing A&M every year, it feels like, but I do think they get the win in College Station this year. Arizona State versus Iowa State. This is a tough one, but I'm going to ride with Dillingham. Both great coaches, a really good quarterback matchup here with Sam Levitt and Rocco Becht. I just have a little more confidence in Kenny Dillingham and the boys. And then, sorry, Iowa State fans, I'm going to pick against you 2 games in a row. Tomorrow's game, Iowa State versus Kansas State. I love the team from Manhattan in this one. I'm gonna go pretty heavy on Kansas State tomorrow when I'm not going to say the app because they don't sponsor us, but when the line finally settles, I'm hoping it gets down to 2.5, might even buy the point, but I love Kansas State in this game. I think they get the win. I don't even know if it's relatively close. I think they win by about 10. So give me Kansas State in this one as well. Sorry, Iowa State. I will pick the Big 12 team in this one. I think Baylor beats Auburn on Friday night, week 1. I think the Hugh Freeze year 3 gets off to a rough start, and I don't think they find a way to get it done. This one's fun. Big 12, ACC as well. Actually, our next 2, this one and the next one are. I'm going to pick. This one's so tough. I'm going to pick TCU. I hate to do this to UNC, but I know the Belichick vibes are super high. I think TCU's a little bit more well-rounded, a little bit more in shape. I think they're a little bit more of a complete product. I don't think you want to play a team like TCU that had a nice finish to the year, looked good at times in last season. I don't think you want to play them game 1 if you're Belichick. So give me TCU in this one. Way too early prediction. No matter what, I'll take North Carolina against TCU in Dublin next year. Just to balance this pick out. I think SMU does get the win again against TCU. I think it's a more competitive game. Now, there were like 400 points scored in this game last year. I don't think it gets that crazy. I think SMU does take a bit of a step back this year, but I do like SMU to get the win in this one. I like SMU over TCU for the second year in a row. Syracuse and Tennessee. Listen, I'd love to see an upset here. I love Syracuse. I love Fran Brown. I just don't know if their talent quite matches up. I think this is a good matchup for I think this is a good matchup. Let's do this. I think this is a good matchup for Tennessee in a week 1 for Joey Aguilar. I think they get the win. Although I think I'm going to bet Syracuse on the spread. I do think they keep it closer than the 9, 10, 11, 12, wherever your book has the line at. Game 44, Iowa versus Iowa State. Always a fun one. I'm going to go with Iowa State here. I didn't give them as much love when they had to play Kansas State. I'm sorry about that, but I will take them in this rivalry clash. I like their quarterback situation just a little bit more. I like Rocco Becht a lot. This game is impossible to predict because every time you think you know something about this game, you don't get it. So Iowa probably wins because I'm picking Iowa State, but give me the Cyclones in this one. Miami versus SMU at 45. I think the Canes win this. I know having to go to Dallas is tough, especially, asking a Florida State fan. I could tell you all about it. But Miami versus SMU, I'm going to lean Miami here. Although, what I told you earlier, Miami does have a quit factor, something built into them as games get later in the year. If they drop to Notre Dame and, let's say, and Florida or Florida State, right? They've got 2 losses potentially. They got to play Louisville. If they've got a few losses going to that SMU game, going to Dallas and playing is not easy. And so I'm going to lean Miami here. But we'll know a lot more about that game as we get closer. I guess you could say that for every single matchup that's not week 1. But give me Miami over SMU in this one. I guess I got Miami going 3-0 in these big games. The problem with Miami is they're going to drop games they shouldn't, even if they do go 3-0 against SMU, Notre Dame, and Florida. That is Miami fans' biggest worry. Miami-Louisville should have made this list. It just didn't. It was on mine, but the other 3 guys didn't have it as high, and so it didn't make the list. Michigan versus Washington. Man, I'm high on Washington this year. I think their offense is really good. I think they're going to have a ton of success. Michigan fans are going to hate me for picking against them in all 3 games in this one, but I do like Washington to get the win here. Did my strike through go through? Let's try it again. But I do like Washington in this one. BYU and Utah, the Holy War. Listen, I don't mean to upset the BYU fans or the Utah fans. They're both some of the most passionate fan bases that exist, but I do think BYU gets the win another year in a row against Utah. So much controversy in that game last year. It was so much fun as an outsider, as somebody with no dog invested in the fight. I think BYU gets the win again. North Dakota State, South Dakota State. We used one FCS game on this one. I'll go North Dakota State to get the win here like they did last year as well. And then number 49, Georgia versus Georgia Tech. This was one of the most fun games of the year last year. Give me Georgia to get the win in this one again. I'd love to see this upset. I think most of the country outside of Georgia fans, no offense to the Georgia fans, was cheering for Georgia Tech to find a way to get that upset late in the year. So much fun. One of the best games of the year last year. I don't know how it finished 49th on here, but it did. Give me Georgia to get the win. And then Auburn, Oklahoma. Man, I hate to pick against Auburn every single time too. But I'm doing it again. A big game that I think Oklahoma finds a way to win. I love the storyline of the former quarterback playing his old team, but I just think material is going to be too much. Ott's going to be too much, and that defense is going to be too much. This could be the game that seals Hugh Freeze's fate. We'll see, but I like Oklahoma to get the win over Auburn. What did we miss? What would make your top 50 list that wasn't in here? I already told you I'd probably have, maybe that Miami versus Louisville game in here. There are others that we could certainly pick from. Florida versus Ole Miss is one that comes to mind. Alabama, there's a lot, right? So let me know what you would pick. Let me know what we left out. Would love to hear your thoughts. What did we mess up? I'm not going to track this because I don't want to be, I don't want to end up going like 14-36 for my top 50 games, but maybe I will track it so you guys can make fun of me afterward. Hey, we are here. College football tomorrow. If you watch this for 25 minutes, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Join us as we've just crossed over 23,000 subscribers. Let's get that up to 25 and 30 and beyond this season alone. We'll do a ton of game breakdowns. We'll do a ton of game previews like we did last year. We'll talk about all the biggest stories. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss any of it. I am linking right here on the screen. If you click the screen right now, I will link the top 50 games playlist. You can go watch all 50 of them. It's going to take you about an hour because they're about a minute each. But if you're trying to kill time until tomorrow, I will link that right here. Go check it out. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to College Football Addiction.